The Syrian opposition is an umbrella term for the political entity represented by the Syrian National Coalition and associated anti-regime Syrian groups with certain territorial control and an alternative Syrian government, claiming to represent the legitimate Syrian Arab Republic. The Syrian opposition evolved since the beginning of the Syrian conflict, from groups calling for regime change in Syria and who have opposed its Ba'athist government. Prior to the Syrian civil war, the term opposition had been used to refer to traditional political actors. For example, the National Coordination Committee for Democratic Change, that is, groups and individuals who have had a history of dissent against the Syrian state. The first opposition structures to form in the Syrian uprising were local protest organizing committees. These formed in April 2011, as protesters graduated from spontaneous protests to protests organized by meetings beforehand. The core of the grassroots civil opposition is the youth, mainly from the working and middle classes, in which women and diverse religious and ethnic groups play active roles. Many of these activists remain non-affiliated to traditional political ideologies but are motivated by concerns for freedom, dignity, social justice and basic human rights. The Syrian uprising phase, from March 2011 until the start of August 2011, was characterized by a consensus for non-violent struggle among the uprising's participants. This occurred beginning from the 29th of July 2011, allowing the conflict to meet the international political definition of civil war. Opposition groups in Syria took a new turn in late 2011. During the Syrian civil war, as they united to form the Syrian National Council, which has received significant international support and recognition as a partner for dialogue. The Syrian National Council was recognized or supported in some capacity by at least 17 member states of the United Nations, with 3 of those being permanent members of the Security Council. The Syrian National Council is considered to be influenced by the Muslim Brotherhood and include many affiliated members. The Islamic Front, a major anti-regime Islamist Sunni militia during the Syrian civil war, is affiliated with the Syrian National Council. A broader opposition umbrella group, the National Coalition for Syrian Revolutionary and Opposition Forces, was formed in November 2012 and has gained recognition as the legitimate representative of the Syrian people by the Cooperation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf and as a representative of aspirations of Syrian people by the Arab League. The Syrian National Coalition was subsequently given the seat of Syria in the Arab League, with Ba'athist Syria representatives suspended. The Syrian National Council, initially a part of the Syrian National Coalition, withdrew on 20 January 2014 in protest at the decision of the coalition to attend the Geneva talks. Despite tensions, the Syrian National Council retains her degree of ties with the National Coalition for Syrian Revolutionary and Opposition Forces. Syrian opposition groups held reconciliation talks in Astana, Kazakhstan in October 2015. Background: the Ba'ath party seized power in Syria in 1963 after a coup d'etat. The head of state since 1971 has been a member of the al-Assad family, beginning with Hafez al-Assad. Syria was under emergency law from the time of the 1963 Syrian coup d'etat until the 21st of April 2011, when it was rescinded by Bashar al-Assad, Hafez's eldest surviving son, and the current president of Syria. As the revolutionary wave, commonly referred to as the Arab Spring, began to take shape in early 2011, Syrian protesters began consolidating opposition councils. Politics. Syrian National Coalition. The National Coalition for Syrian Revolutionary and Opposition Forces is a coalition of opposition groups and individuals, mostly ex-Silik, who support the Syrian revolution side and are against the Assad government ruling Syria. It formed on the 11th of November 2012 at a conference of opposition groups and individuals held in Doha, Qatar. It includes organizations such as the Syrian National Council, the previous iteration of an exilic political body attempting to represent the grassroots movement. Moderate Islamic preacher Moaz al-Khatib, who had protested on the Syrian street in the early non-violent phase of the uprising, served a term as the president of the coalition, but soon resigned his post. Frustrated with the gap between the body and the grassroots of the uprising inside Syria, Riyad Seif and Suairat Hassi, both of whom had also protested on the street in Syria early in the uprising, were elected as vice presidents. Mustafa Sabur is the coalition's secretary-general. Muslim Brotherhood, Islamist party founded in 1930. The Brotherhood was behind the Islamic uprising in Syria between 1976 until 1982. The party is banned in Syria and membership became a capital offense in 1980. The Muslim Brotherhood has issued statements of support for the Syrian uprising. Other sources have described the group as having risen from the ashes, resurrected itself, to be a dominant force in the uprising. The Muslim Brotherhood has constantly lost influence with militants on the ground, who have defected from the Brotherhood-affiliated Shields of the Revolution Council to the Islamic Front, coalition of secular and democratic Syrians. Nucleus of a Syrian secular and democratic opposition that appeared during the Syrian civil war. It came about through the union of a dozen Muslim and Christian, Arab and Kurd parties, who called the minorities of Syria to support the fight against the government of Bashar al-Assad. The coalition has also called for military intervention in Syria, under the form of a no-fly zone similar to that of Kosovo, with a safe zone and cities. The president of the coalition, who is also a member of the SNC, is Randa Kassis. Damascus Declaration. Opposition bloc from 2005. 12 members were sentenced to 2.5 years in prison in 2008. Syrian journalist and activist Michel Kilo launched the declaration, after the Syrian writer and thinker Abdullah Akid had written its first draft. Riyad Seif, another democracy activist, became the first signatory. The 5 small opposition groups signing the declaration were the Arab Nationalist National Democratic Rally, the Kurdish Democratic Alliance, the Committees of Civil Society, the Kurdish Democratic Front, the Movement of the Future. The Movement for Justice and Development in Syria also subscribes to the Damascus Declaration. In a series of splits 2007 to 2009, most members left the Damascus Declaration, leaving the MJD and SDPPU as the only remaining factions of any consequence, along with a number of independents. Syrian Democratic People's Party, a socialist party which played a key role in the creation of the SNC. The party's leader George Sabra is the official spokesman of the SNC, and also ran for chairman, Supreme Council of the Syrian Revolution. Syrian opposition group supporting the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad's government. It grants local opposition groups representation in its national organization, a Syrian Democratic Organization, a party representing Assyrians in Syria and long repressed by the Assad government. It has been a participant in opposition structures since the beginning of the conflict. Abdul Ahad Astafo is a member of the SNC. Syrian Turkmen Assembly, a recently formed assembly of Syrian Turkmens which constitutes a coalition of Turkmen parties and groups in Syria. It is against the partition of Syria after the collapse of Ba'ath government. The common decision of Syrian Turkmen Assembly is, regardless of any ethnic or religious identity, a future in which everybody can be able to live commonly under the identity of Syrian is targeted in the future of Syria. Syrian Democratic Turkmen Movement, an opposition party of Syrian Turkmens which was constituted in Istanbul on 21 March 2012. The leader of Syrian Democratic Turkmen Movement is Ziad Hassan. Syrian Turkmen National Bloc, an opposition party of Syrian Turkmens which was founded in February 2012. The chairman of the political party is Yusuf Molla. Local Coordination Committees of Syria, network of local protest groups that organize and report on protests as part of the Syrian civil war, founded in 2011. As of August 2011, update. The network supported civil disobedience and opposed local armed resistance and international military intervention as methods of opposing the Syrian government. Key people are activists Razan Zaitoner and Seher al-Atasi. Free Syrian Army and Higher Military Council, paramilitary that has been active during the Syrian civil war, composed mainly of defected Syrian armed forces personnel. Its formation was announced on 29 July 2011 in a video released on the internet by a uniformed group of deserters from the Syrian military who called upon members of the Syrian army to defect and join them. The leader of the group, who identified himself as Colonel Riyad al-Assad, announced that the Free Syrian Army would work with demonstrators to bring down the system, and declared that all security forces attacking civilians are justified targets. It has also been reported that many former Syrian consulates are trying to band together a Free Syrian Navy from fishermen and defectors to secure the coast. Syrian Turkmen Brigades, an armed opposition structure of Syrian Turkmens fighting against Syrian armed forces. It is also the military wing of Syrian Turkmen Assembly. It is led by Colonel Muhammad Awadun Ali Basha. Syrian interim government. At a conference held in Istanbul on 19 March 2013, members of the National Coalition elected Ghassan Hitto as Prime Minister of an interim government for Syria. Hitto has announced that a technical government will be formed which will be led by between 10 and 12 ministers. The Minister of Defense is to be chosen by the Free Syrian Army. Territorial control. Syrian opposition has presence in 9 Syrian governorates, though none is fully under the control of the entity. Governorates with partial opposition control include Latakia Governorate, Idlib Governorate, Hama Governorate, Aleppo Governorate, Homs Governorate, Rif Damat Governorate, Qunitra Governorate, Dara Governorate, Hama Governorate, Raqqa Governorate. In April 2015, the interim seat of the Syrian interim government was proposed to be Idlib, in Idlib Governorate. Military forces. The military forces associated with the Syrian opposition are currently largely defined by the Syrian Revolutionary Command Council, which is mainly relying on the Free Syrian Army and the Islamic Front coalitions. Initially, the Free Syrian Army was perceived as the ultimate military force of the Syrian opposition, but with the collapse of many FSA factions and emergence of powerful Islamist groups, it became clear to the opposition that only a cooperation of secular military forces and moderate Islamists could form a sufficient coalition to battle both the Syrian Ba'athist forces and radical jihadists such as ISIL and in some cases al-Nusra Front.